Let's go.
Third round. So, two perspectives.
I do this for you. It's up and coming, very controversial at times. Ooh. Let's roll.
At least he hasn't been hurt yet. Process versus results. Doing your best not to overreact.
To hear things that make sense, but if you don't like, you look at all these guys, they're getting cut, and I got funky, baby. NBD. Balling out of control. I knew he could be a guy. Dude, this guy is the ultimate taxi stash.
This is an adequate stash for your taxi.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Everything broke right for him last year, and this year Etienne's foot broke right for him. So J-Rob is back.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Dynasty Wire. It is the Draft Genius. I am back again. Welcome back. I am very excited for this show. It's not going to be as long as our normal shows, but it'll be right there on the cusp of that mark. Getting you that hour, that long commute drive, maybe getting you through the week, right? You got a 10-minute drive every day to work. Well, at least you start your morning with us, right? I'm very pumped for the show today. We have a lot on the horizon, mainly attacking that taxi squad as promised in the previous shows. That taxi squad is how you keep rebuilding your team without ever having to go into a rebuild, right? Whether it's 3 players, 4 players, 5 players, to 10 players on taxi squad, you can never have too much talent on it because this is your future, right? It's just like an NFL team's taxi squad. We see taxi squad darlings that pop up out of nowhere and become contributors year in and year out. So I'm pretty pumped for that. I'm going to touch on the rookie rankings, give you a sneak peek, that little national treasure right there, the rookie ranks. And we will touch on a few other things as well. So strap in, get your pen and paper out, and get ready to write. As always, I got my boy Iowa with me. What's going on, man? How are you?
What's happening, DG? Yep, we covered buys and then we covered sells. So I'm sure you're sitting at home enjoying the preseason games we have on and doing your best not to overreact, sending out some offers, maybe countering some offers. You may have received a handful of bad offers. Before we get started, I want to give 2 options that you can do to respond to what is a bad offer. Your natural reaction is decline and ignore. Well, you're trying to create a market to be able to buy and sell. The most fun leagues for me are the most trade active leagues. So I do my best to counter even the worst offers, but you want to do it with efficiency. So for my 2 options, what I would need to sell a player or the player's desired or the package or the position or whatever, the first offer is what I would need to sell what the other party was trying to get. The second option would be what I would be willing to give for what the other party has offered. And then, tweaking parts of the deal where I can't make it make sense. That gives them 2 options. If it immediately shows that this is a waste of time, you can disengage and go about your day. But this can also show the gap in players and they may change routes, or you may just find out this isn't going to be someone you're likely going to be trading with. So counter those bad offers with efficiency. Try to make some deals because that's what you learned the last couple shows, trying to feed off of what we see here in preseason. How's preseason hitting you?
Man, preseason is unmatched, right? Last year, it kind of sucked not having that preseason hype. It was a dark place in order to make some moves, right? There was a lot of uncertainty there. And of course, there was things you could capitalize on, narratives of training camp or practices and stuff, but you didn't necessarily see these guys in action. That's why a guy like James Robinson, for the most part, went unnoticed until week 1. Things like that are happening right now. So far, it really is moving people up and down my rankings right now. You look at the situation with Michael Thomas, right? Michael Thomas, being super diva over there in New Orleans, has paved the way for a guy by the name of Marquez Callaway to come onto the scene. He's showing he can actually be not really an alpha, but like a baby alpha for that team, right? He can be that X receiver for him. Michael Thomas has slid down my rankings a good bit, but I am still invested in him on the cheap end. I'm not paying his all-star price. I'm paying a big discount if I'm getting him, but it comes with risk, right? He's not the only guy. Different rookies have risen up based on their performances. Trey Sermon, he went up. Travis Etienne is going to stay normal. The news today broke of his Lisfranc fracture. He's going to stay normal for me, but I understand if you're trying to move him down. My rankings go down to the decimal value. I have short-term value, which is aka win now value, or I'll have long-term value. These are guys that I don't see contributing right away, but they could contribute as soon as next year. Not this year, but next year. One guy in my win now leagues that has risen up in my dynasty rankings is Naji Harris. Naji Harris has proven in preseason that he's going to be the guy and that he actually knows what he's doing. He's not really taking false steps when he's running. He's running good pad level. He's using his hands. He's adjusting well to contact. Things like that are looking really good. Another guy who has moved up, who's also a rookie, I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm going to switch positions. I'm going to go back to the wide receivers again. It's Jalen Waddle, right? Special teams get you on the field no matter what level of football you are in. Jalen Waddle lit up all of TikTok, Twitter, all those little apps, lit it up with his punt return. Hello. I mean, this guy showed insane amount of wiggle and just infinite capabilities while being on the field. He will find his way on the field, and he could actually become their wide receiver one down the line. I didn't have that outlook at the beginning of preseason, but after what I've seen on a few plays and this punt return, I definitely could see him, becoming that guy for their offense. As always, there has been many all-season movers, and this rookie class is kind of one of the best in a while. So you have quarterbacks, right? Mac Jones. Cam Newton got COVID, okay? This kind of paves the way for Mac Jones to step up. He's going to play a whole preseason game, or he should play most of it. I mean, this is his prove it. So he will go up if he does good. Zack Wilson has reassured his spot for me. You'll find out where I have him later in rookie rankings, but in Dynasty, he has stayed exactly where he is. One guy who has moved slightly up is Trey Lance. I saw a thing about Trey Lance today, the most drop passes, whatever, but I mean, the dude's throwing the ball like he can ball. One guy who has gone down for me is Jamar Chase, sticking with the rankings. I just don't see him being right now a contributor. Like towards the end of the season, he will, I think. But I think it's the T. Higgins show there. They still got Tyler Boyd. Going to veterans, I guess that moved besides Michael Thomas, besides the obvious of Jameis Winston, who is now going to be starting for the Saints, trying to get off of the Saints right now and moving to another veteran dynasty. It kind of pains me to say because I haven't really supported this guy in the past, but after last year, because of his performance last year and the recent change at quarterback, I think Robbie Anderson deserved a bump. Right, they just extended his contract 2 years, and he's paired with Sammy D. I love Sammy D. He gets his favorite target back, and as we talked about in previous shows, they extended Sam Darnold's fifth-year option to keep him there an extra year. Writings on the wall. Who are some guys that in this offseason, I guess, shifted? It doesn't necessarily have to be rookies. I know most of the bulk for me was rookies, just because this rookie class, I said it since last year, was going to be the class to supplant a lot of veterans. That's what we're having happen. So on your end, who are you moving up and down?
This year, looking at preseason, I've taken 3 things away. 1, that process doesn't always yield the results you expect. 2, injuries suck. And 3, watch, but don't overreact. So process versus results, the rate that first-round running backs hit is a really good rate. When you invest in a first-round running back, the odds of that pick panning out is pretty good. Well, long trombone, Etienne done for season as of today. Dramatic reverb. Something you can definitely come back from. Tons of players have come back from that before. A common question here in the near future will be Etienne or Akers. This obviously helps out J-Rob. James Robinson has a new path. Everything broke right for him last year, and this year Etienne's foot broke right for him. So J-Rob is back. It's a thing. It's something, someone who's going to have to absolutely be adjusted in ranks. As far as Etienne, it becomes that zero value this year, and then what are you willing to invest in that for next year? So I'm treating him like a mid first round pick for next year. Absolutely, guys, moving up and down on the ranks. I have no idea exactly for sure what I want to do with Etienne, but I know that there's 9 or 10 people I like better than him for sure. Counting zero value towards this year. Fields and Lance have looked appropriate for what I've expected, have satisfied what I was hoping to see. They have solidified top 5 of what I would consider my ranks. Previously, it was a discussion between, do I want the more scarce position at RB with Etienne, or do I want one of these QBs? Well, in Superflex, typically you're leaning those QBs. Now, obviously, you're going to have Javonte over Etienne. You're going to have Chase over Etienne. Zach Wilson, I was a little worried coming in, but he proved to be at least competent. It didn't look like a disaster out there in preseason. There's an asterisk with everything that comes with preseason. You know, it's not like they're out there trying to win the game. It's not like they're out there running their starters, but he did some things that you like. You know, same deal with Mac Jones. Like them a lot too. Like you mentioned, Robbie Anderson extended. Part of the reason I like Terrace Marshall as much as I like Terrace Marshall is because Robbie Anderson gone next year. This could be a thing. Well, now it's going to be, how awesome are these three wide receivers going to be with Sam Darnold for, you know, at least next year as well. I don't think it's a great thing for Terrace Marshall that Robbie Anderson got extended. Jalen Waddle, you know, everyone in that core has been dinged, and Bowden went to the IR today. So that's just one more person in that wide receiving corps. It's Albert Wilson running around there catching passes. So the last man standing at worst, Jalen Waddle. Devontae Smith is actually not hurt at the moment, where like Rashad Bateman is. Another one of those last man standing scenarios. So, yep, guys moving up and down a little bit. The injuries suck with like Etienne. You know, I have Etienne and Akers in a third of my leagues. So I definitely freed up a roster spot this week.
Tell you what, dude, one guy I'm buying everywhere right now, and I am on a mission before this episode is published to buy him everywhere. It's Rashad Bateman. I recently just moved him up. I'll get a lot of flack for saying this, but I thought about putting him over Jamar Chase just because I love his style, man. This dude just wows me. He just wows me. He is the perfect receiver for Lamar Jackson for his style of play. So I'm buying him everywhere. I just want to put that out there. I wish I would have been buying him on the buy show, but I'm not. So I'm buying him now. Just as you said, man, like preseason is just insane, right? Like you think of the injuries and everything, right? Even Jalen Waddle survived the injury scare in the game. He got hit and was laying on the field for a while. He had to go to the medical tent from what I remember. Then he came back and looked fine. It's in the blink of an eye. I mean, I'm sitting here watching and enjoying the Saints, and then all of a sudden my boy Fishman goes down. He gets carted off the field. I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? Like Adam Troutman? Are you kidding me? Come on, dude. So that paved the way for Jawan Johnson for me. I liked Jawan Johnson. He's a converted tight end. He was a wide receiver last year and wide receiver in college. I think he'll be a solid guy for them. I just don't see him being an immediate contributor by any means. I think that's really it. Regarding all-season movers, one guy that I could see not necessarily rising, right, but being just a pain in the anus for people is a guy like Todd Gurley, right? I mean, Todd Gurley obviously is not what he used to be, but he's a veteran that could be signed somewhere. Like, he could be signed in a spot that has injuries to their running back core. Things like that.
Someone who I have kept on every single roster when I'm making my cuts this week is Amir Smith Marsette. If your league rewards kick return yards, he's someone who could provide value that way. He's got Thielen ahead of him. Obviously, the Justin Jefferson had a large portion of the total receiving work at Iowa, even though they didn't necessarily put up tons of stats. Being dynamic where he returns yards, he takes punt, kick return. He's fast. He's not short. There's a lot worse stashes you can have than Amir Smith Marsette, who I call ISM for short. And one more that I want to make sure I mention here, Javian Hawkins cut. Sad violin. But just like you said with Gurley, he could be signed. You know, what if the Jags picked up Javian Hawkins now that Etienne is down?
Yeah, that could be a possibility. One guy that I was going to bring him up later in the show, but I'll talk about him now, that I guess benefited from the Hawkins departure is my boy Caleb Huntley. Caleb Huntley, all 5'10", 230 pounds. I mean, he's a big boy, you know, but he's been running good. I mean, he had 6 carries for 57 yards. You know, one of them was, yes, a 30-yard rush, but their depth chart at the running back position is Mike Davis, Olsen, Cordarrelle Patterson, and then that's it, really. I think Huntley proved he could survive the first round of cuts, right? I mean, over Hawkins. Now, all actuality, he could get cut next week and be just with Hawkins anyways, right?
Right.
I mean, these lower tier rookie running backs are being cut everywhere. And you look at Stevie Scott, right, for the New Orleans Saints, he got cut. The cream is sort of rising in a sense. I just think that's so corny to say that. But you have a guy that I am stashing on all of my taxi squads. It's my boy Tony Jones. So Tony Jones is on the New Orleans Saints. I can't believe, I'm bringing up the Saints all the time. I guess I just got him on my mind today. But Tony Jones is a 5'11", 225 guy. Last year he was on the roster. He's not necessarily a rookie, but he's been balling in preseason. Like, he's been balling out of control. One of these games in preseason, he had 12 carries for 108 yards. I mean, the dude has been making a clear case that if the Saints want to go the cheaper route, they could easily cut Latavius Murray, keep him on the roster. That would be huge, because just last year he signed a future reserve or whatever contract, and he's making a name for himself. He's really making a name for himself. Yeah, they got Devontae Freeman, but this dude is 23 years old, and he gives him some youth. He's a cheap option, and he's just showing he wants to be a Saint, showing he wants to play. So he's getting it, and I'm pretty pumped about him. I mean, I'm getting excited right now. My heart's starting to race. It's also starting to race because I'm talking about somebody who I liked last year as a rookie, that he's not a rookie this year. So I think it's time for us to touch on a few rookies that we like this year. Sticking to the top 20, maybe some rookie sleepers that still have a chance. There's a guy by the name of Jake Funk, who I've been getting in every fourth round of my rookie drafts. And then Mr. Cam Akers got hurt, and then guess who had all the funk? I did. I got funky, baby. It was me. So first, I want to give you the floor, and I want to hear some of, I guess, your rookie rankings and anybody who is controversial, why you have them where you have them.
Well, keeping with the theme of selling Derrick Henry last week, it's going to be difficult to receive that amount of touches and remain healthy. Darrington Evans is still taxi eligible in a lot of leagues, and someone I'm sliding down there. Jake Funk might even pass Xavier Jones. So I definitely like that one from you as well there. Kellen Monde is someone, he was one of the better rushing prospects when he first entered college football. And then, the Vikings could have potentially tried to trade up, but content with having Kellen Monde. No one loves Kirk Cousins. No one wants to be married to Cousins. Kellen Monde there is something where it probably won't pay dividends this year, and it might be halfway through next year, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if we eventually see some Kellen Monde. Someone else who's taxi eligible, who I know you're not necessarily a fan of, but Eno Benjamin, and that's largely just because we're both not a fan of James Conner. It could be worse, it could be, we've already had two of what is like the top 24 running backs go down, and the season hasn't even started yet. So if there's guys that can be stashed on your taxi, I'm not typically looking for a wide receiver who, if the opportunity breaks, they could be barely a flex. I'm looking at someone who's eventually going to be good, who I might consider, has a ceiling of at least being like a wide receiver too, who I just need some time for them to develop before I activate them. That's the kind of wide receiver I'm sliding down. I'm typically not trying to stash tight ends at all. Don't need an extra tight end when, you can just rotate them off of waivers every week outside of, deeper leagues, multiple tight end leagues, tight end premium leagues. One more guy now that we know Etienne is down and James Robinson is ascending rankings. I'm curious what you think about Carlos Hyde.
I used to be the biggest Carlos Hyde fan on the planet. I mean, this guy, he just lingers. He's been jumping team to team to team forever. I mean, San Fran, Jacksonville, Houston, Seattle, and now back to Jacksonville. Carlos Hyde last year, they weren't good. I know that. He had 3 games with 15 carries. And his points fantasy-wise in those games was respectable, 16.6, 15 carries, 68 yards, and 1 touchdown, 4.9, then 6.6. So I don't necessarily think he will be a huge dominant contributor. We have to remember, the competition, the people he was playing with last year. But if something was to happen to James Robinson, hypothetically, Carlos Hyde is the next guy up. And it's going to be ugly. And you're going to get made fun of. And ask, why are you doing this to yourself? But Carlos Hyde could be a serviceable flex if that situation happens. It's just something that could happen. And he's basically free right now, right?
Yep.
Nobody really wants him. You can get him off the waivers in the deepest of Dynasty. I picked him up in a Dynasty today. That's a 14-teamer. And we start 3 flex and with 2 running backs. People forget about him. He's a nobody. Todd Gurley is rostered in 75% of leagues, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Hyde is rostered in 44% of leagues. Carlos Hyde is on a team. Flex, potentially. He's free. Go get him. That's my opinion of Carlos Hyde. Now, look, it's not pretty. Xavier Jones, Jake Funk, Tony Jones I brought up earlier, Ty Johnson, Jarrett Patterson. But if I have an empty roster spot and I need somebody who can be serviceable, I'm going to pick him up because he's free.
Yep. I'm glad you mentioned Jarrett Patterson because he's kind of flashed in preseason. There was the scare like a month ago. You could get a discount on Gibson in drafts. There was a narrative about his toe. Well, that's something that can flare up again and again. If Jarrett Patterson's looking sweet out there in preseason, it at least gives me confidence that, this is an adequate stash for your taxi. Where, if Gibson went down, you're probably going to activate Jarrett Patterson. That's someone you might actually play, someone who there's a good chance they're not just going to sign someone off the street who might beat out Jarrett Patterson. And that's kind of what you're worried about with Carlos Hyde. When he was a Brown is kind of becoming like a distant memory. He's kind of just there. And I don't know necessarily that he does anything better than what James Robinson does. So he would need James Robinson to go down and them not to sign someone who is better in the passing game. I'm a little hesitant with Carlos Hyde, but there are worse stashes out there. I picked him up in a handful of leagues, especially deep leagues. Might be sliding down Carter a little bit. I previously, when I was on the clock and Carter was still there, often I'm looking at like Rondelle Moore, Elijah Moore, or Carter. So you basically have two Jets or someone who, can't get on carnival rides. Previously, I had been taking Michael Carter. I think I'm probably still doing the same and assuming that it's eventually going to work out, but this does not look like someone who's going to come out the gate and be someone you want to start week one. It might be something that takes a little bit of time. And part of that is because of Ty Johnson, other running backs they have there. One more player I'm watching would be Sony Michel. We love Damian Harris. James White's still on the squad. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is looking good in preseason. Michelle might be the odd man out. I'm not sure yet, but if he got cut and he went to ATL, I would love Michelle. That would be awesome, taking the 29-year-old's job. And one last stash before I hand it back to you here, Tyler Johnson. I liked him out of Minnesota last year. Obviously, they have a couple sweet wide receivers, and then Tom Brady is bunking with Antonio Brown. So, and then they draft Darden this year, so it may not materialize, but Tyler Johnson is someone I probably would be considered a truther for at this point.
Tyler Johnson is the new Justin Watson. Justin Watson, athletic darling. I loved him. I had him everywhere on taxi squads, and I touted him year after year, and then it never came to fruition. There was always an excuse there. They really they're spoiled. How would you like to have just a plethora of wide receiver talent, and you don't know when one of them is going to come out of the light and be that guy? It sucks. I just can't stand it. Anyway, Jarrett Patterson, I think he can end up being the 3 there. I do. I think he can beat out Peyton Barber, and then it'll be Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and then Jarrett Patterson. J.D. McKissick isn't going anywhere. He led all running backs in touches last year. He did pretty good at it, oddly enough. But Antonio Gibson is the guy there. We know that. Jarrett Patterson is going to be second fiddle at best. At best. So that's a guy that I'm kind of stashing everywhere. Real quick, I'm going to run through the rookie rankings because I know a lot of you are probably like, come on, dude, just give it to us. Okay, I'll give you my top 20. I'm going to go fast. So you're going to have to rewind this. 14-team ranking, Superflex, tight end premium. Ready, go. Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Travis Etienne, Naji Harris, Sermon, Elijah Moore, Devontae Smith, Rondelle Moore, Terrence Marshall, Jalen Waddle, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zack Wilson, Michael Carter, Kadarius Toney, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Diami Brown, Pat Freiermuth, Amari Rodgers, Gainwell, Mac Jones, and then my boy Dwayne Eskridge, who is going for some odd reason in the third round. I also have Joe Palmer with a question mark because I just don't know where I want to put him in. Chuba Hubbard, I don't know where I want to put him in. And then last but not least, my boy Nico Collins, just because I feel like he can get snaps. He's going to be getting snaps. He could end up being a huge sleeper this year. I just don't know if I want to invest fully in that situation.
Do you have Etienne over Harris?
Yeah. Rookie rankings? Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. Fracture doesn't move him for me. Harris is he's a win now guy, yeah, but long term I want Etienne. Injuries don't really, unless it's a Cam Akers type of injury, really affect my rookie rankings that much. I'm not a Harris guy. He's great, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather Javonte. I would rather Etienne. Sermon, I mean, I don't think he's going to be as good as Harris, but I think he's like a somewhat of a value pick. If you want Harris, but you want to kind of build your team, and you have that 101, and you know somebody really wants Harris, and they're not going quarterback for some reason in a super flex, I never go quarterback. I always trade out of the 101, 102, 103 to somebody who needs a quarterback because you could end up, getting dollars for pennies right there. If you have somebody who wants to trade up and get that quarterback or Naji Harris, and you can find that sweet spot of 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, one of those five, and you trade back and you get a guy like Trey Sermon, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a dramatic difference between him and Naji at first. I think Naji is definitely going to get more carries, but if Trey Sermon ends up being the guy in San Francisco, he could put up some of the same weeks. It's not going to be as consistent, but he can still do it for you. And hopefully you got other pieces in that trade that can balance that situation out for you. So that's my, top 20 featuring three guys that I don't know where I want to put them. What about you, man? Give me a sneak peek at your rookies.
Well, you will immediately notice a stark difference in where we have our quarterbacks. I typically think in 12-team Superflex, as I've said before. I know you were saying yours is 14-team Superflex, but I'm going with the evaluation that's how it's been for the last several years. I have no problem with Trevor Lawrence at the 1.01. I battle with the tier of what would be Naji Harris, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields. That is what I view as the next tier. You need quarterback, or you have a favorite quarterback out of the two, you take that. If you desperately need running back, then I have no problem taking Naji Harris there if you're set at quarterback. After that, it's a mini tier of the top of each available position, which would be Javonte, Jamar Chase, and Zack Wilson. Zack Wilson has basically elevated himself to that tier, whereas previously he was right behind that tier. I am late to the party, but I'm here for Zack Wilson as far as that high is. Now, after that, what I'm sure you probably won't like is I would prefer Mac Jones in a super flex over a Kyle Pitts. But at this point, I'd probably be interested in having Kyle Pitts over Travis Etienne. And part of the reason why I have Travis Etienne there is because a lot of how I value a player is baked into this year. Like the heaviest weight goes on the current year. And then there's next year has the next highest weight, and then future outlook has the third highest weight. So if there's a 0 for current year, I'd rather have a Zack Wilson where I can sell it for a pick that gets me a player like Travis Etienne plus, instead of an injured Travis Etienne. Now, Travis Etienne is his value plus a roster spot if you have IR spots, because you can slide him down, like I said earlier, freeing up roster spots left and right. First Cam Akers and then Travis Etienne. But moving on down the ranks, this is when it starts to get to the big group of wide receivers. Before the draft, during the draft, and after the draft, I've had Rashad Bateman ahead of Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. It sucks, the injury, and I think with him likely being able to come back, assuming he doesn't get re-injured, I should still be safe having Rashad Bateman over Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. I just don't like the fact that Devonta Smith basically has my measurables as far as height and weight. I do not want to be getting hit, below the waist by NFL caliber players. Looking at pictures on Twitter, like how many hits until it looks like, it could be an RG3 knee scenario. Jalen Waddle is someone I've just been fading because he wouldn't test, but then obviously the draft capital reward came from the Miami Dolphins anyways, so I waddle back and forth on Jalen Waddle. The next three wide receivers I had there would be Bateman, Smith, and then Waddle. In the draft I had last night, I took Smith before Bateman because I had the pick after the next pick, and it's just because I was pretty sure I could get Bateman with that next pick being injured currently, and I did. Sermon went in between. Sermon and Carter are in what would be the next tier for me. If you had a preference, which one you liked, it was back and forth. With Carter not looking like he's going to start the season as well, I probably move him side by side, but one spot behind Sermon. After that, then it's 2 tiers of wide receivers: Rondelle Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Elijah Moore. No particular order there. That's the 3-man tier. I like Terrace Marshall probably first of that tier for a while, but then obviously the Robbie Anderson extension, I'm a little worried there, but still, same tier. Rondelle Moore getting a ton of looks in preseason. It looks like they're just going to manufacture him touches, which that's the only way Rondelle Moore was going to be relevant in the NFL, is if they had a coach that would, create opportunities for him. And it seems like in preseason, they're at least throwing some of those out there. So, still a little faith in Rondelle Moore from Purdue. I love him. Elijah Moore, I have in that same tier just because, when a bunch of NFL players are going out of their way to say how this guy is freaking awesome, people are comping him to Antonio Brown. Like, obviously, it's a crowded wide receiver room there. But like you said, as preseason goes through and as the season evolves, the cream rises to the top. And I definitely think that Elijah Moore would qualify as cream. Lastly, to get to what I would consider 20, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Rodgers, honorable mention, Kadarius Toney. Sheehan made it really obvious to me that Kadarius Toney might be a knucklehead. And there's that knucklehead factor that you have to factor in there. And we've discussed previously how we like, the scenario for Amari Rodgers in the future. That's basically how my rookie ranks would be shaping out at this moment. What you think?
That's a pretty good list, man. I mean, for the most part, the running backs, I guess we disagree on, but the wide receivers I can get behind. You know how I feel about Pitts. I think he is a league winner, right? A roster changer immediately. He's going to be able to give you wide receiver 1 numbers from the tight end spot, in my opinion, which is rare. The thing I cannot get behind, which I've had many, many arguments about, I'm a firm believer that quarterbacks are more overvalued in superflex leagues than anything else. Yes, you can flex them, but there's not much difference from the quarterback 10 to the quarterback 20 in points. Being said, running backs also flip easier in leagues. Running backs are the most volatile position. So if you can buy Naji Harris, right, in a rookie draft for cheap, and you could end up selling him later on for if you would have drafted him last year, if he was a rookie last year, and you would have been able to sell him for Christian McCaffrey, you telling me you couldn't have done it, right? You wouldn't have done it? I would have. But you don't have that unless you draft that running back. And I draft rookie running backs with the intent to sell, unless it's a league winner. Eventually, I think Javonte Williams becomes a top 5 running back who can be a staple on your offense. I don't see the value of taking that quarterback. Now, look, I take quarterbacks at the 107, starting there. If somehow, some way, Justin Fields is there at 107, I'm not going to pick him fast enough. That is my threshold. I will never pick a wide receiver over over a quarterback, but I will pick a running back over a quarterback. And Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is the only tight end I would pick over a quarterback. But teach his own. That's the fun about it. That's the fun about Superflex leagues. Different strategies win you different leagues. One day we're going to have a whole strategy episode. That's going to be fun. Trade strategy, draft strategy, roster construction, all that good stuff. One thing we can touch on today, though, is a tiny bit of roster construction. It's more so the bottom of your roster, right? I just kind of went on a rant, not a rant, but a mini explanation, I guess some of you will call it a rant, of quarterbacks versus running backs in Superflex. Well, one of my strategies with quarterbacks is I stash rookies on my taxi squad. I do, because evidently people forget about rookie quarterbacks, and they could kind of come out of nowhere at times. Not often, but on the off chance that you hit on somebody and you're holding them on your roster for free, why not have them, right? So I'm going to go through, I guess, my top 10 guys on my taxi squad and also what I look for, right? I'm not going to host, like right now, I have Stevie Scott on my taxi squad, and I'm actually dropping him as we talk. I don't think he could end up being anything. On the Saints, he had a short room, but now he's kicked off. And I'm replacing him with my guy, Tony Jones, right now. Literally, as I'm talking to you, I'm doing this. So, Iowa, but I need to know, who are your most, your most taxied, right? The guys you have on your taxi squad the most. And I kind of want to know, how do you construct your taxi squad? Because I'm going to touch on, I guess, my process and the reason why I do it the way I do it. But I'm very curious on how you build up your taxi squad. And what necessarily do you use it for?
So, two perspectives. The taxis in the leagues that I am in are set up one of two ways. Either the taxis are flexible, like flexi taxi, as in they don't have a set date where they need set. So basically, it's an extension of your bench that is for younger players for you to move them as they develop, but you can move them up and down freely. And then the other way is what I think would probably be the more common way, where after preseason, they lock, or as week 1 starts, they lock. And then once you activate them, you have to free up a spot for them and you can't move anybody back. So how I construct my taxi in leagues where I can't put someone back in if I move someone up is that it's got to be either something I'm looking all the way forward to the following year, or someone who I think I would actually be able to activate and start. Not necessarily someone who's just young, who, maybe might be flex worthy, high upside stashes. And that's almost never tight ends. It's only wide receivers who I know are going to start slow. Any rookie quarterback who I've taken who is in a week 1 starter is likely going there because I need the bench spot. The ability to pick up somebody else in the meantime. Previously, I had stated Jared Dokes. Well, he got a lot of drops today. Going through leagues and I'm over players, he's the bottom of the roster. F in the chat for Dokes, but he entered the waiver pool in a lot of leagues. At the end of the day, I'm trying to build up your future from your taxi in leagues where they lock. Like I said, a third of my leagues, Travis Etienne. So instead of my taxi, he's moving up onto my roster and then immediately to my IR, which he will now sit there for at least a year's time. Somebody I've ended up with in a ton of rookie drafts is Anthony Schwartz, fastest player in the NFL draft. Anthony Schwartz.
Wow! Liquid Schwartz!
He could basically be the next Odell if Odell were to be hurt or traded. Someone I like. Obviously, no one is super excited about a Browns passing game, but there's things to like there with Anthony Schwartz. He's fast and he's not short, like the majority of this draft class. At the end of seconds and beginning of thirds last year, I took Jalen Hurts in every single draft and he sat on my taxi. Well, this year, my Jalen Hurts is Kellen Monde. The same rushing upside quarterback where there's a older quarterback ahead of him who's not necessarily an all-star. Cousins is under contract through next year for sure. So the Eagles cost themselves a ton of money moving Wentz, maybe. But in all reality, my realistic expectation is that halfway through the year next year, maybe Monde is getting some starts. That's one of the most common rookie acquisitions I got from drafts. From Andre Stevenson, really excited about that after seeing what he did in preseason there. Someone who was going in the 3rd round of every draft after Kenny Gainwell, after Hubbard, sometimes after Javian Hawkins. The stigma, Patriots running back, we know what it is. And speaking of Patriots, I have a ton of Mac Jones as well. Like we had talked about previously, trading back and getting a quarterback who was picked 15th overall in the NFL draft, and you can get him at the end of the 1st round in a super flex rookie draft. Like, it just seems like a super value to me, and it's something I was capitalizing on all off season. Then Rashad Bateman, you said too. Absolutely love this dude. Every time I was on the clock and, Devontae Smith and Waddle is still there, I was trading back. I was trading back because Mac Jones wasn't there, and I was trying to pick up Bateman later and pick up something of value for it. That's basically where I'm at as far as the rookies, how I stash them. In my leagues, it's year 2 and year 3 are also eligible to be stashed. So guys that might be available on your waiver wire would be like Quez Watkins, who has looked good in preseason, even though he might be like the wide receiver 4, but he has looked okay so far in preseason. If a Zach Ertz trade comes down the pipeline, then, that's just one less target in a pass game that often is targeting their tight ends. So if I was to give you one last stash as far as that might be just out there in a lot of leagues right now, it's Quez Watkins at 60-some% of leagues currently.
Dude, I love Quez Watkins. I wasn't going to mention him, but the guy is 6'2", about 188, 187. He's electric, right? He's not going to be a consistent week-to-week guy, but he is electric. He's definitely somebody who he's pretty good. I mean, to have on a taxi squad, right? These are guys that I am looking basically hit or miss, right? 50-50 coin flip, right? Are guys who I can see myself contributing, putting them as a contributor to my roster in the future. I liked a lot of the guys you said, and I'm going to apologize if I repeat them. Kellan Monde is a guy I have on every taxi squad because why not Kellan Monde? right? Why not? Why not Kellan Monde? Kirk Cousins is an old bat. He's getting even older. Kellan Monde can run. He can scoot it and boot it, man. I mean, this guy, he can do it. So I'm going to steer clear of your theory of not having tight ends on the taxi squad, right? That's where I have most of my tight ends because I'm constantly rebuilding that position. And once a tight end hits, you can probably sell him like right away, right? Because tight end is a scarce position. People do like these young, shiny rookie tight ends. One tight end I have everywhere is Hunter Long. Hunter Long is sitting on my taxi squad. He's kind of the king of the taxi squad right now, right? And he has all these other little peasants underneath him, but he is my most taxied player. I have him on the taxi squad in every league but 2. Every league I am in but 2 of the leagues, he is on the taxi squad. I just think he is a guy who you can get in the late rounds right now, and he's not going to make an impact this year. He's a guy that I'm looking to be on my roster next year, and a lot of those rosters I do have Mike Gesicki. I will sell Mike Gesicki probably week 4 if he doesn't blow up before then. But Hunter Long is the guy that I'm planning on replacing him with. Another guy, Amari Rodgers, right? We spoke last episode on him not being a contributor right away, right, this year. Whatever this was, the resurrection of the zombie of Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams and Robert Tonyan and then whoever else. Who knows? They might bring out Jordy Nelson. But Amari Rodgers is going to contribute slightly this year, right? Slightly this year. He's had a few showings. I think he got targeted 5 times and had like 35 yards or whatever the past preseason game. But he will eventually be the guy there, in my opinion, at receiver. So that is one guy I am trying to hold everywhere. I'm having no struggle at all keeping him on my roster. There's a lot of guys I'd rather drop than him at this point because I see his future as being very bright. I'm not going to spend too much time with him because we already talked a whole episode about him, basically. One other guy is Tutu Adwell. So Tutu Adwell is hurt right now. You can get him cheap discount, right? He's small. He's very small. You want to talk about Devontae Smith being small? Well, Tutu Adwell is 5'9", 165. He was selected in the 2nd round by the Rams. With Robert Woods getting old, Cooper Kupp, I believe, is 27, right? I love Cooper Kupp. We know this. But somebody will be leaving that receiving core soon. Tutu Adwell is basically available, especially with the injury right now. Most people don't even know what this guy is. Pick him up, stash him, right? Stash him. These are guys so far that are going to be long to medium term stashes, right? Nobody's necessarily a short term that I'm planning on using this year. Obviously, injuries happen. Green Bay Packers get Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb hurt. Well, then it's the Amari Rodgers show, right? Robert Tonyan show. But I don't see, as of now, any of these guys contributing. Only guy I could see contributing with becoming the 3rd receiver on his team, if he is not already, is Dwayne Eskridge. Dwayne Eskridge is a straight-up baller. The dude's 5'9", but he is not Tutu Adwell 5'9". He is Mr. Eskridge 5'9". He's 190 pounds. He's thick. He's very close to my size, actually. I am basically Dwayne Eskridge. You're speaking to him. So if that doesn't tell you to put him on your taxi squad, I don't know what will. Yes, he's a little banged up right now, but these rookies are transitioning into the professional level of playing sports. If you did not play for an Alabama, an LSU, a Georgia, Clemson, a powerhouse school where you have just NFL talent through and through the team, there is a major transition. It's a proven fact. It is a huge transition from college football to the NFL. It's not something to take lightly. So these players will be hurt every now and then, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. I'm going to move on to my next list. I'm kind of bouncing around because, as you know, I do play a lot of Devy leagues. So a lot of my taxi squads are Devy players. They're claimed that's the way that they're set up because Sleeper just ignores that they need to put Devy in the app. Put it in the app, then my taxi squads wouldn't be Devy players. So that's all I got to say on that. One guy I've had since last year, after getting passionate about Devy leagues just now, is Lynn Bowden, okay? This is how my love affair for Lynn Bowden started. I liked him throughout the whole entire draft process last year. I'm an Oakland Raiders fan. Oakland Raiders drafted Lynn Bowden last year. I said, wheels up, Lynn Bowden, let's go, baby. Well, he converted to not being a quarterback, and he was a wide receiver or a running back, whatever he was. I don't know what Gruden. He drafted him in
3rd. He was picked right next to Brian Edwards.
He traded him for a pick. Don't say this. Because I'm trying to convince myself that I'm wrong in this thinking. But then he trades him for the 6th or 7th round pick, right?
Such a waste.
I mean, dude, I'm pouring one out for Mr. Gruden, man. There's something wrong with that guy. He's just doing things the old Raider way, right? Like flashy moves that don't make any damn sense at all. Yeah, let's draft Darius Hayward-Bay, blah, blah, blah. No, don't make any sense, dude. So, entering Kellan Monde, gets picked up by the Miami Dolphins. Okay, this could be something. I put him on my taxi squad. Didn't want to get rid of him. He ended up playing meaningful snaps last year. He ended up being a guy. I knew he could be a guy. I had him the whole year. Enter week 14. Starting slot receiver, baby. 9 targets, 7 catches for 82 yards, 15 fantasy points, NBD. 6 catches the next week on 7 targets, 37 yards, 10 fantasy points, NBD. This is all on the taxi squad, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not talk about when he played Las Vegas. It was a revenge game going bad for him. Let's talk about week 17. He started again at slot, got hit 8 times, 8 targets, right? 8 catches, 44 yards. 13 points. Dude, this guy is the ultimate taxi stash for me. Taxi stash. And he's on IR now. So now I'm going to take him off my taxi squad and I'm going to put him on IR. And now I get to move another person to my taxi squad. Let's see who it is. We're doing this live right now. I'm putting Anthony Schwartz. You just talked about him. I'm not going to go into him. I love him. Anthony Schwartz is a baller. And we know that Odell occasionally has gotten hurt throughout his career. I do like Donovan Peoples-Jones in taxi squads that allow you to hold players for that long into their career. He is a guy I have on most squads. But if it's not him, it's Anthony Schwartz from the Browns. One of those guys will have the chance to be the wide receiver 3 this year. And Baker progressed as the season went on. So I do see them having value. Another guy is my homie Elijah Mitchell. Raging Cajuns, what's up, right? Elijah Mitchell, he deserves a shot to live on your taxi squad. He can carve out a role. He could actually end up being like Elijah McGuire. It's weird that they have the same name, but he could end up being a contributor at some point in his career. The other guy I have, I'm only going to give you 3 more. One is Sam Ellinger. So this was before the Carson Wentz saga. Sam Ellinger just, if Carson Wentz is there, he's most likely going to get hurt, right? Poor guy can't stay healthy. It sucks so bad because I would like to see a whole healthy season of Carson Wentz, not getting destroyed and decimated because his offensive line is some poo. But Sam Ellinger or Jacob Eason has to be the backup there. I chose the more athletic of the two. That's who I got. Ellinger, whatever you want to call him, is the other guy on my practice squad. I love him. One guy that I called up from my practice/taxi squad is the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who is looking like a modern-day Terrell Owens, Bryan Edwards. Bryan frickin' Edwards, baby. Let's go. Let's roll the Bryan Edwards carpet out. Bryan Edwards is now, cue the celebration noises, in 100% of leagues. Right? Celebration. Another guy I'm not going to mention much on because you already talked about him is ISM, right? Amir Smith Marsette. This guy is the wide receiver 3 for that Vikings team. If somehow, some way, something happens to Adam Thielen, I expect possible fireworks from this guy. And last but not least, this is a guy you should all be buying. I don't know why people are selling him right now, but I've found, at least in 3 leagues this week, that he has entered the trade block. It's Denzel Mims. Go get him while you can. Put him on your taxi squad. This dude is way too talented to not be on a taxi squad right now. Denzel Mims is one of my favorite players from last year's class. I have a bad addiction to Baylor wide receivers. That's usually what I tell people. Denzel Mims is definitely the guy that I am most likely to hit on out of all of those, Baylor wide receivers. Checked player profile before I made my notes for this show. And what I'm about to say, this one piece of information is going to tell everyone why I like Denzel Mims as much as I do. Metrically, right? Athletically, he is most comparable to Chris Godwin. Yes, that Chris Godwin, the guy who I fanboy over every chance I get. Chris Godwin, a.k.a. Denzel Mims. That's a guy I want to stash. I like Denzel Mims' athletic profile. He played pretty good last year whenever he was given the chance. I expect him to eventually break out. Yeah, last year he only had 23 receptions for 357 yards, but his air yards was 634. It was almost double that. So I definitely think that Denzel Mims is a great stash for your taxi squad. That's really the only people I'm stashing at this point. That's the bulk of my leagues. The only other person that I guess is worth a mention mention, which he isn't on my taxi squad anymore, was Marquez Callaway. As I said at the beginning of the show, Marquez Callaway, a.k.a. Alpha Callaway, that guy's on my regular roster now because he deserves it. All 6'2", 204 pounds. He's going to dominate leagues this year. He could easily be a league winner this year. So, and that is a prime example of what the taxi squad is used for. Taxi squad is used to rebuild your team without going into full panic rebuild mode, right? You are slowly keeping the wheel turning by bringing up people from your taxi squad onto your regular team. Next year, maybe you don't have to go crazy in your rookie draft and draft a quarterback if Kirk Cousins somewhat retires or moves on. It's the Kellan Monde show. Oh, lucky you. You had him on your taxi squad this whole time, right? Things happen for a reason. You have taxi squad people for a reason. Use them to your advantage. Don't just use it to store junk. Use it to store potential treasure. I love taxi squads. I also love big changes, right? Big changes are on the horizon, so I hope you're paying attention. Content will not change. You will just have more guests, more segments, and the same information and the same blasts. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. Me in Iowa every week on this thing, feeding you the information you need to win fantasy gold. Iowa, dude. This show was possibly one of my favorites because we touched on players that I never get the chance to talk about. I mean, these guys on my taxi squad deserve some recognition.
Yep.
When you say the same.
Yep. Everywhere you look, everyone's talking about the best players. You know, your top 10, your top 10. This person's top 10, your top 10. Well, we dug deep. We talked about the Ellingers and the Easons of the world. And on your point to like those kind of guys and use of taxi, I am kind of meticulous with what kind of quarterback I'm willing to put on my taxi. Like last year when people were taking Eason at the end of drafts, you know, they were taking, you know, Jake from State Farm, and that just sounds hideous. Eason almost became what you drafted him last year and sat on him for when Wentz was hurt, but Wentz is already back practicing again. So that little buy window where you could have bought JT because Nelson's hurt and Wentz is hurt, that buy window might be closing. The buy window has been open since camp started for Mims. It seems like maybe it had to do with like food poisoning or whatever, where that's why Mims wasn't running with the ones, is because of this, that, and the other thing. Well, I still think that there's a chance that like Crowder gets traded during the season. That's what kind of like elevates the Elijah Moore into relevancy. But, you know, if that's the case, then maybe it's Mims and Corey Davis and Elijah Moore out there if they can move Crowder. As of right now, it seems like Mims has been drawing the short straw, but I don't know that that necessarily is going to happen for the long run. Part of the reason why he got drafted as highly as he did last year is because such a freak when it comes to athletic measurables. The downfall was the fact that he came from, you know, the Big 12 or whatever. Mims is someone I was overdrafting last year too. I was taking him in the second rounds as well, basically looking at player profiler. And when you see all the bars are up there, it's like, yep, you know, this is a guy I'm willing to take a shot on. So definitely right there with you, man. Excited to see the evolution of the show. It's been interesting getting to know you. You know, we're 3 shows in and, you know, even more respect for you than I had when I came in. So been awesome talking with you here. Definitely look forward to the future shows and what that all has to bring.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And I've enjoyed every second of it as well. You know, I don't always have absurd amount of time to put something together, but you were always willing to work around my schedule, which is huge. And it's huge for the fans as well because, I mean, it's really, I do this for them. So all in all, this has been a great process. I am very excited to ramp this thing back up again, and we will continue, right? Sometimes it might just be me. Sometimes it might just be Iowa. Sometimes it's going to be both. Sometimes it might be 5 of us. Sometimes it might be a whole entire team. It might be a whole starting offense, baby. 11 people on the show. It will be crazy, okay? One thing I can promise you is that you need to go follow Iowa on Twitter right now. It's Iowa in the NFL, okay? All one, complete handle. Iowa in the NFL. He is part of the Superwire program. He does really good work, right? He's sort of a perfectionist on the production side, and I very much appreciate that because if you are not trying to be perfect in your work, then what are you doing? You're not doing it the right way. So this is one guy who you need to keep an eye out on. It's up and coming. As always, I can be found on Twitter at the Draft Genius, doing things that are, very controversial at times. I love to be controversial because you need a shock, right? You need to hear things that make sense, but maybe you don't like. But it makes you think of certain things and gets that thought process developing. That's what we want. We want to create smarter fantasy players and people who can make decisions, right? It's kind of like developing you in a sense to where you can go and win leagues in and out. And one day, dude, I have a listener that reached out to me from season 1, episode 1, reached out to me recently, said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Can you give me any advice? Dude, of course I can. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'll sit down for an hour and talk to you just to answer things because I do this for you. I don't do this for a, 6-figure check. I have other things that I'm going to do as a job, right? As a full-time job. But I do this for you. I do this because I genuinely do care about your fantasy team. I'll help you as long as I have time throughout the day. I would do the same. We are here to help you win fantasy gold. Once you win the gold, all we ask is that you say, hey, check out what I got. So I can clap for you. I mean, I just want to clap for you. I want to congratulate you genuinely when you win your league. You can do that by listening to us. And we also have a listener league, okay? Stay on the horizon. The news will come at that. We will be drafting once the season starts. More to come on that. Who knows what we're talking about in the next show. We've been hitting random topics week to week. Maybe I'll put some feelers out there, see what you want to hear. But as of now, it's a mystery. Iowa, thank you always. It's been a blast. Listeners, thank you always. Hope you wrote everything down. If not, rewind it. Get to work. See you next time.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Potential treasure.